Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is JAE LEE Day, so we're looking at issue number 2 of his inaugural creator-owned series for Image Comics, HELLSHOCK. This is issue number 2, cover dated August 1994, and not much to say about the cover, because to me, it's all just, a good example of 90s kind of Photoshop coloring excess. Pretty sure this was all done digitally to, on a new series, all of a sudden have the logo turned on its side. Don't know if that's the greatest of ideas. And just a poorly designed cover. To me, it just feels like someone who's not yet very familiar with Photoshop, just doing kind of collage elements. And again, you do this when you've got 12, 24 issues out. I don't know, but, HELLSHOCK, not yet a recognizable character. And this is definitely not helping out, even though this is kind of like the design of his face paint, I guess, or his logo, whatever you want to call it. I remember back in the day when I was collecting this was the last issue I bought. And honestly, the story, not so much the art, and this cover was a big reason why after 2 issues, it was just not something I was into. There's really not enough happening to get me interested. Good on JAE LEE for doing a 22-page regular sized issue on the number 2, but then with the I think it was 14 pages or 12 pages for the first issue, there's just not enough story with issue 1 and 2 to get me interested in the rest. Although I do have issue 3 and 4 now, which I haven't read. So for next week's review, when I look at number 3, they'll be like with some fresh adult eyes that have never gone through the rest of the story. So maybe my thoughts will change on HELLSHOCK, but up to now, after issue 2, pretty disappointing. Still very much all set up, even by the end of issue number 2. Not quite sure what's going on. So back in the day, I dropped this pretty quickly after this issue. And let's see what's going on inside. So story and art, JAE LEE, colors, Jose Villarrubia, computer colors, in color lettering, Richard Starkings and Comicraft, cover, David Larks and JAE LEE. So I didn't mean to throw too much shade on David Larks, but he's probably the one who's most responsible for how not great it is. So starts off with a new character that we didn't see last issue. So like I said, a lot of setup in these first 2 issues, introducing all the characters, right, that weren't introduced in that short story for issue number 1. And basically, we got the trope of the old kind of psycho mom with her daughter here. And I guess this is a flashback sequence from what I can surmise from next page, where her mother possibly has painted that on her face, or is, pointing out that she's got it on her face. And familiar, of course, as I talked about, to be kind of the symbol of HELLSHOCK, which, again, we've only seen him have on his face on covers and advertisements. Hasn't happened story-wise yet. So I've talked about the slightly toned down kind of JAE LEE style that he's using here, as opposed to the stuff we've reviewed before. That's going to continue here. Like I said, slightly more realistic proportions and finer line work. Still kind of messy and splashy though, and I appreciate that. I've talked about how I definitely feel like he was going for kind of a Vertigo book. Vertigo, not quite sure. Some people call it, it's Magneto, that whole thing. Going for that kind of vibe here. Good layout that I've seen from JAE LEE before. The tilted panels and the angles and stuff, I think, work really well here. And so she wakes up from her flashback dream or nightmare. From what I can surmise, there's someone talking to her, right? Someone, I guess, a physical presence that isn't actually there. So they kind of highlight it with a fire here, which I think works all right. Not the best coloring, but the idea of it and the fire in her eye is a good visual cue that there's someone talking to her. And of course, making the lettering and both the lettering and the phylactery, the word balloon, a vastly different shape from everything else we've seen, right? Makes it fairly obvious in the storytelling. So up to now, nothing egregious. A lot of reused art in the face, but that's fine, if it works for what you're doing in your composition, which it does. I definitely feel like it does here. And all throughout, I've talked about this last issue, I do feel like this is, just kind of made up and hand-drawn, but all this stuff here, definitely backgrounds that are digital manipulations of pictures somehow, given that look, that high contrast look, that's pretty easy to get on Photoshop. Now we're back to our main character, and the fact we kind of bring back the idea that the priest in issue 1. Back to our main character, HELLSHOCK, although he's not HELLSHOCK just quite yet. I feel like these are photocopies, stats of a panel from issue 1, just to remind us what happened with the priest being dead. Obviously, the police officer finds this guy kind of sitting in the church, so he assumes that he's the one who killed the priest. And pretty quickly, tables are turned by HELLSHOCK here, and the cop gets thrown here. Art-wise, this is kind of the only fail in the whole book to me. JAE Lee's a great artist. The aesthetic and stuff, I mean, I think he's doing well. Still using great silhouettes, but, you know, a little more refined in his artwork, or at least that look is starting to refine itself here in HELLSHOCK. But if you're expecting me to believe this more kind of chiseled masculine guy here is the same guy, just from a different angle here, the eyes are too low. Like, just this angle, for some reason, this one drawing in the whole book just doesn't work for me at all, and looks kind of goofy, right? And the gums that you see and all that, like, just this just doesn't work for me. Even the badge here, I feel, is almost like a photocopy or a collage insert, right, from a picture, and then kind of just darkened and messed with the contrast. Some cool shots here. I've talked about, I definitely feel like there's a Crow influence. So even the look of the character, right, the silhouette, and the silhouette here of him getting shot is just all very Crow-esque, if I can put it that way. But of course, HELLSHOCK professing his innocence. He didn't kill the priest. And the cop just, you know, has a chance to literally shoot him in the head. And I thought these two panels were fun down here, where you can clearly make out HELLSHOCK, who's just been shot, the police officer down on his knees, and then we see that he's fallen as well. I think that works well. Nice little sequence there. Quickly, we move back to the kid hiding in the pipe from last issue, who for some reason meets up with another kid, and lo and behold, they look the same. Again, kind of, I mean, it works, but more indicative of where JAE Lee's going to be going. This almost looks like some of his modern stuff, a little more delicate, more fancy, more fine. But yeah, to realize that you look like someone else, and just the way the placement of the eye here is just a little odd to me, but it kind of works. There's something about it that's a little bit cartoony. He's having, just like with the cop getting caught by the throat, I feel like he's having the eyes sit down just a little bit lower. Maybe it's some stylistic thing he's trying. I'm not quite sure. This church, definitely a photostat, and no effort at all. But I will say this, JAE Lee already wasn't doing very many backgrounds, so to have some, it's already more than we're getting in at least his Marvel run and his definitely Youngblood Strike File run. So the cop gets wheeled out asking about the other guy, and this cop informs him that there's no one there. So clearly HELLSHOCK can survive getting shot in the head. Great use of silhouettes all throughout both these pages here. I love the grungy, dirty kind of look of the garbages here, kind of blending into the shadows all around. Lots of splatter and stuff. Looks great. The actual silhouette is clear, right? Well done. He's thrown in the eyes for good measure. I like the stoop and the posture, and more grime kind of coming off the ground here between the two buildings. Just a great splash page there. Kind of Spawn-esque, just with a lot less detail, a lot more shadow to me. It definitely feels like an image kind of image, to make a pun there. And again, that more kind of delicate, fine-lined kind of look for the face is a little more realistic, not quite as twisted and gnarly as his earlier stuff that was a bit more like Simon Bisley. And, you know, good one here, but this shot here, tiny with a bit of light and stuff, I just think is great. And the posture, I mean, JAE Lee's always been great at using the silhouettes. He does more of it here. Really works well here, I think. Kind of Sin City-esque to a certain extent, but I don't think necessarily that's where he's going for the inspiration for that. This I thought was weird, though. All of a sudden, these kind of flickering colored flames over top of the black and white art. Like, I get that it's supposed to lead to this character that's talking to her, I guess, in her head or something for the moment at least, but I don't feel like it works really well at all graphically. Like, I don't feel like you need that there. You've already established, you know, the shape of the word balloon and the different lettering for that character, and, you know, you're using a really bad fire effect here, but nonetheless that fire motif that we saw earlier, so this just looks kind of crap to me. Odd choice here. I don't know why, if this was done on purpose or it's a mistake or something, but to have the phylactery and then another one behind it, is that supposed to add even more to her questioning of the situation? I'm not quite sure if I like it or not, or if it's interesting. So yeah, once again, being talked to through some in her head or some other dimension or something. Just kind of a quick aside with a nun visiting the injured police officer, and that's all we get. So there's not a lot of information. I guess we'll find out more next issue. Pretty cool pinup here by JAE LEE, right? Great stuff. But you're not going to sell your books on pinups. Is that, I guess, maybe why HELLSHOCK has the bullet scar on his forehead there? Maybe because of this, what happened in this issue? Not sure, but that would make sense. Next issue pinup by Bill Sienkiewicz. I hope so. I'd definitely like to see that. I didn't see it as a kid, like I said, with issue 3. So next week will be lots of surprises for me in that comic. So this other version of the kid, who of course JAE LEE is hinting at is maybe a little bit evil, right? The one that looks exactly like him, hails a cab and asks him to come along. And he says, get over it. Come on, Josh. What do you have to lose? I'm assuming this is HELLSHOCK as a kid. I don't know for sure. I'm going to assume that until I know otherwise. And I mean, again, pretty blatant here. Those are clearly just pictures as used as backgrounds. The only element that's been drawn here is the 2 characters here and the Josh character there. So this was an interesting splash to me. Looks pretty good. I like how, the shadows of the room kind of end where her robe, I guess, does, right? And that goes all off into negative space, and just adding these 2 lines here just kind of makes it look cool. It's very good design work there. And finally we see I guess some sort of demon or I'm not quite sure who this guy is, right? But he's the one communicating with her. And finally his image appears on the mirror of her bathroom. Some more photocopied pictures here for the backgrounds. So I'm going to assume JAE LEE was just putting this out pretty much on time. With the amount of work he's left up to, some photocopies and copies of pictures. Again, HELLSHOCK, very Spawn-like kind of environment here, very Image, I guess, very 90s. And other than the face paint, man, is he not the Crow there? That's the Crow. So he's sitting there with the bullet hole, blood spurting out of it, not dead, and someone communicates with him too. Tonight, Daniel, heaven reclaims its bastard son. Okay, so there you go. The mystery is solved. Daniel is HELLSHOCK's name, and the kid's name is Josh, so I guess they're not the same person, right? I have not been sent to ferry your fractured soul to the hereafter. Rather, I'm here to offer you salvation. Then we finish off with a pretty cool, pretty cool use of just pure black and white in a very clever way, right? Leaving this whole section of her main figure just pure white, and then using a bit of splatter to kind of give us a bit of contour. Works really well here. And used a bit of black on the wings as well to give some texture, and splatter behind here to be able to give us a bit of her hair. I think that all works really well. And of course, HELLSHOCK, the dark kind of mysterious character he's the full silhouette, but great use of just black and white pure contrast. It looks really good. A hint of color there that I think works well. And that's it for this issue. So again, not much going on. I'm going to assume issue number 3 hopefully is going to be a little bit more interesting, and finally we'll get introduced to the actual HELLSHOCK, and we'll get some of those kind of visuals going in the book. But again, I don't know for sure. I'll be surprised next week when I review HELLSHOCK number 3, an issue I've never actually ever looked into. There you go, guys. That's my review of HELLSHOCK number 2. If you're still watching, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the support. If you're still subscribed, I appreciate that as well. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. Like the videos. Anything like that helps the channel, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. So thanks again for watching, and have an awesome day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.